To build any component, we need to be in component mode. Next we need to give the component a type. In our case, it's a selector. Our selector has 3 states, however a selector can have many states. Each state represents a position the selector can be switched to. We can build the selector on each state. However, it's not necessary for a selector, as we can simply build it on state 1, and provide a component rotate angle, which will allow the software to automatically switch to the different selector positions. Selectors can be built from images in the same way as we built the 3-way toggle switch, but in this example we will use some basic parts to build an airliner style selector from scratch. We need to change the size of the component canvas. We will make it larger than the actual selector, to accommodate selector position lines and a shadow. Using mainly off-white colors, which can be difficult to see, we will select, use dark transparent background pattern, from the colors menu. First, we will add a circle onto the background. This will be the back part of the selector. Leaving it initially unfilled, will help when building the top part of the selector on state 1. Moving on to state 1, we will set the new part foreground color to off-white. Next, we will add a white triangle part. Now, we will add 2 arcs, and configure them to mark the outline of the selector. We can now copy and paste each of the arcs, and then select, mirror and flip, on the copies to produce the opposite shape. Don't worry about using decimal values to get the arcs to line up. We can now complete the selector outline by adding an arc part for the end of the selector. Next we will add arcs to represent the curved sides of the selector. Using a slighter darker color helps to differentiate it from the top. Taking copies of the original arcs and changing the configuration will help to keep the shape correct. We set the z-index to -1 on the parts that represent the curved sides of the selector, so that these parts, once they are filled, will appear behind the top part of the selector. Again, we will copy, paste, mirror and flip copies of the arcs to produce the opposite side. Finally, we will add some lines to complete a fully enclosed shape of the same color. This is important for when we fill the shapes with color. Any gaps would cause the whole canvas to be filled. We can now fill the shape with the new part, foreground color, by clicking the Fill button, and then clicking somewhere in the shape we wish to fill. Adding 3 rectangle parts will build the selection mark. We want the selection mark to light up when powered, so we enable the lighting options. Moving back to the background, we will add a hub spoke part to build the 3 selector position lines. We will not label the selector positions, because labeling them when it's fitted onto a module will allow this selector to be used for different functions. We want the selector position lines to light up when powered, so we enable the lighting options. It's now time to set the background color on the back of the selector. A shadow can be added by using a black circle with low opacity. Setting the Z index to -1 will place the shadow behind everything else. We can now align the selector to its first position. Next we need to select all parts on state 1 and group them together so they rotate together. We can now rotate the group part to the first position of the selector. Because we have only built one state, we must set the rotate angle. We can get the rotate angle from the hub spoke parts angle interval. Now the selector has been correctly built, and when in use, state 1 will be rotated clockwise, or anti-clockwise, by 36 degrees, which will snap it to each selection position line. We need to name, and save, our component. Optionally, a snippet label placeholder can be added. This provides a place for automatic component labeling. This concludes our tutorial. I hope you found it useful.